William Ato in Juba Malatori Ayam Yo in Ping William Ato in Benti Wala Kwaju Hey wow in Ping William Ato in Malkal Wala Pinyaram in Ping William
Welcome everybody. For those of you who are in Facebook and Clubhouse and YouTube, please start sharing the video. Take over now.
Thank you so much, Leg State Media team. And to our viewers, welcome to Leg State Media Beyond Boundaries. On this day of 29th December 2023. And in the studio with me today is the former Secretary General of the R-SPLM, the current chair of the real R-SPLM, General Pagan Amum Okiech, and most of you knows him for many things during the struggle and even after independence. And for that reason, we have him today on the studio to speak to South Sudanese, especially in regard to the crisis and the state of affairs of our country. General Pagan will speak to you in numerous topics. And the only thing that I would ask from our viewers is to make sure you share this live show so that we attract many audience to listen to him. We understand that many of you have been asking, where is General Pagan and what is he doing? So he's here today to answer those questions. And for that matter, permit me to welcome Honorable General Pagan Amum Okiech. The floor is yours to give us your opening remark before we dive into our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Majong Makur, for the welcome. And let me take this opportunity to greet all your viewers inside and outside South Sudan, and to greet all the people of South Sudan through you. As you know, we are the youngest nation and state that joined the community of nations on 9th of July 2011. And that makes us all the South Sudanese alive today in the various generations to be the founding mothers and fathers of this new nation. Our generation, ourselves, all of us, elderly, middle age, and young people in South Sudan, all of us are the founding generations of the independence. And we all know in the last 12 years of our independence, our country has gone in the wrong direction. It went through wars, instability, violence, and economic crisis, and major humanitarian crisis. The majority of our people today are either facing starvation or are surviving simply because of international humanitarian assistance. Millions of our citizens are refugees outside the country, and more millions are internally displaced in the country. And some of the refugees are returning back home into displacement and humanitarian crisis, particularly with the war in Sudan. Things are not well with us, and it is time for us to sit and talk and decide how best we can carry on with our historical mission as a generation. Our historical mission is to lay the foundation of the new state and of this new nation. We need to be very clear, how can we build a state that belongs to all South Sudanese, a state that can serve them, a state that can deliver to them all the public goods expected of a state, now that we have our state after our independence. And the question also is how to build a nation out of the 64 or more ethnic groups in South Sudan, a nation that is united to pursue a common purpose. And what is that common purpose? It is because of this that we in the National Consensus Forum last Saturday, on the 16th of December, we launched a national consensus statement, a call to all South Sudanese stakeholders to convene a roundtable to rescue the country, to return the country back to the path of state and nation building. This is a call by a number of political parties, civil society organizations, professional associations, and religious leaders who have come together all with a single mind on how to call for a conversation, a national conversation with the aim to build national consensus around a new social contract that can be a basis for state building and nation building in South Sudan. Our vision is that of a peaceful, just, democratic, and prosperous South Sudan for all South Sudanese. An inclusive community that is united to create a better homeland for all South Sudanese and to end the current national crisis. And this call is to all South Sudanese so that we can sit together and resolve this crisis that is engulfing our country. We have fought ourselves, we have disagreed, we have quarreled, we have killed ourselves. Now it is time for us to have a conversation, to stop all this madness and to go back to the path of fulfilling our historical task as a generation. And that historical task, I must repeat, it is the task of laying the foundation of an effective system of governance, building of a state that is capable to deliver on all the promises that we have made from generation to generation during all our struggles for independence and sovereignty. Our historical task is how can we now build a nation out of our diversity, which is ethnic and regional and gender so that we can have a South Sudan that belongs to all South Sudanese, a South Sudan that we can be proud of, a South Sudan that would be prosperous, and a South Sudan that we can proudly bequeath to the future generation as we leave this world. That is the call for a conversation. The solution is with us all South Sudanese. It is not with any single individual or with any single party or with any single group in South Sudan. It is all South Sudanese that must now sit and communicate and talk and resolve the crisis they have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Pagan Amum, for that introduction and for the call to rescue the country, as you put it. General, as we move to our conversations of today, you have mentioned the National Consensus Forum, and this is where we will start our conversation. A few months ago and few years ago, you were at Soma, and Soma is currently engaging with the government in peace talk in Rome. And last year, not even last year, this year, you also came up with the issue of roundtable as the holdout group referred to by the government. And as you mentioned, on 16th of December 2023, you launched the National Consensus Forum. And your documents was obtained by Lagos State Media, and we went through it. And your call is to call for all South Sudanese, talk to themselves, sit down, agree to disagree, and at the end of it all, they will come to unison so that they can move the country forward. Kindly, can you elaborate more? What is National Consensus Forum? Is it different from National Dialogue or Roundtable Initiative? Or is it different from Peace Talk in Rome? And thereafter, we'll come back to the issue of Rome and Kenya, which was proposed recently by the president. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you, Brother Majo, for this very important question. It is true that we were, as opposition, we were organized in SOMA, South Sudan Opposition Movement Alliance. And this is an alliance that was created by all the political and opposition groups, armed and unarmed opposition groups, who rejected the imposition of the RRCs in Khartoum by the former dictator of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, because that agreement did not address the root causes, and also associated with that agreement were the interests of Sudan or other regional powers that complicated the process of reaching the revitalized peace agreement, and those interests were harmful to the interests of South Sudan, and it made the revitalized peace agreement as if it is a surrender agreement by the opposition, forced to return to Juba. In return, the regime in Juba was to take care of the interests of Sudan. And that is where the association between, for example, the oil management with the peace agreement was related. If you remember, in 2018, in June 2018, the government of Sudan proposed what they called a Khartoum peace declaration, which they wanted President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar to sign. And it was a very bad declaration. even Kerr and Riek could not agree to sign it, at least in public. And so those interests in oil and land and all that, and also domination in South Sudan, had to be disguised, and they became understanding which were part of it. And even the way Dr. Riek was forced to return to Juba before the implementation of the pre-transitional arrangements, and the way the whole agreement collapsed in the end, proves what we in Soma has been saying, that this agreement is signed, yes. The agreement itself is not bad, but there was no intention to implement it. And that is why it has not been implemented. It could not be implemented, and it has been dishonored. So we formed Soma, and immediately Sant'Egidio came to take the initiative to bring the government, the revitalized or reconstituted government of national unity, formed on the basis of RRCs, to negotiate an agreement with Soma in Rome. And we were involved in negotiations for a very long time. And we signed a number of declarations, like the Rome Declaration, the Rome resolutions. We have also negotiated a number of other documents, like the agenda, the Declaration of Principles, and all that. Now, the country developed into even a much more worse situation, especially with the RRCs not being implemented and violence is spreading out all over the country, and the economic crisis was increasing. The humanitarian situation for our people was also getting more disastrous. And because of all this, and the agreements are not implemented, and the negotiations were not going anywhere, we came up with the proposal that it is time for all South Sudanese, whether in the government or in the opposition, whether political parties or civil society organizations or religious leaders, women and youth groups, all of us, we need to come together to rescue the country, because the country is threatened with disintegration and with collapse into chaos. That is where the initiative for Soma to come together with other civil society organizations and professional associations. So 21 different organizations came together, and they have been engaged for more than 1 year in discussions on how to rescue the country, on how to address the root causes of the conflict in our country. That is how the National Consensus Forum was created, as a forum to work towards the development and the building of national consensus among all South Sudanese. I repeat, among all South Sudanese, whether in the government or in the opposition, whether political parties or civil society organizations or religious groups, whether men or women, whether old people or young people. All South Sudanese, we believe, have to come together now, because this is the urgent call to rescue the country, and it is all our responsibility. That is how the National Consensus Forum emerged. Yes, in Rome, we continued to negotiate with the government, and last year we went to Rome. This year in March and in May, we met and discussed with the government, and we tabled to the government that it is time to address the crisis in the country differently. And why we are saying this? Because the government of national unity, the transitional government of national unity, revitalized or reconstituted government of national unity, had come to meet us after the expiry of the transitional period. That government was formed for a period of 36 months. And the 36 months had elapsed. The government has lost legitimacy as per the agreement itself. They decided to extend their time in office for 2 years, saying that within these 2 years they are going to implement the agreement, or what remain in the agreement, which is actually the larger part of the agreement, has not been implemented even up to today. So we said, look, now we have experience in the country. All agreements that have been signed have not been implemented and could not be implemented. All the transitional governments that have been formed have failed to deliver what they promised to deliver when they negotiated the agreement and formed the government. And that is to deliver peace and transition to democracy in the country. Now that peace agreements could not take the country out of this instability, out of this violence, out of this state failure, out of this fragility, if peace agreements could not do this, what can we do? So we said, okay, let us stop the path of negotiating another peace agreement which will not be implemented. Let us go into the path of having dialogue, build consensus, maybe reach agreement on a new social contract that will then South Sudanese will use and translate into a permanent constitution, into a political system, a stable political system that can deliver, and that can then be also used for us to build ourselves into a nation that is united in its diversity. That is where the proposal of a roundtable came. Yes, it is not different from the national dialogue, but we have also our experience that the national dialogue, which was organized by President Kiir as a result of some of proposals made by some of us, its outcomes, though the resolutions were shelved by President Kiir. And in it, many groups could not participate, those who were in the opposition, because it was organized by President Kiir and designed by them, even though the outcome was not accepted by President Kiir and contested and he shelved them, and he then I think disagreed with the steering committee or with the secretariat and the leadership of the national consensus and national dialogue, which he formed himself. Learning from that, that is where the idea of the round table came. All the focus here is to rescue the country through a national conversation and with the aim of building consensus among us as South Sudanese. We are saying enough killing ourselves. Enough is enough to have conflict and to fight war or even to negotiate agreements which is only limited among political elites in the country, and which has also been focused on power sharing and access to resources and not to deliver to the people. You can see the current government. What has it delivered to the people of South Sudan? Nothing. It is only sharing power. That is the big titles of president, vice president, and minister and advisor, but they are not delivering anything to the people. And the limited resources, much of it is being diverted to private pockets, is being stolen through corrupt projects like roads and things like that, or outright looting of the state through the so-called contracts where false contracts that say that they are delivering certain services and goods to the government, while in actual fact nothing is delivered to the government, and they just take the resources and go and divide them. As you can see, this is taking the country down. That is where the call for all South Sudanese stakeholders to convene this roundtable. And the idea of roundtable is that we are all equal stakeholders. We are all South Sudanese. As I said earlier, this is arising from the fact that we, the present South Sudanese generations alive today, we are the founding mothers and fathers of the new nation and the new state. It is our responsibility and historical task to build or lay the foundation of this new state and the foundation of building this new nation. That is our historical responsibility. We cannot escape it. And that makes us all, as South Sudanese, equal stakeholders. We have equal responsibility. Nobody has more responsibility than another. Whether you were a liberator or part of the liberation army and movement, or you were a supporter and a citizen who was supporting the liberation struggle, or even whether you were a militia against the liberation and you have come back and joined South Sudan after independence, or whether you were outside the country and you could not help the process as an individual, but now we are all citizens, equal citizens in this new country. And each and every one of us has the responsibility to contribute towards the building of this new state and towards the building of this new nation. That is why we say we sit in a round table denoting our equality. and our equal responsibility. Of course, we have equal rights, as enshrined even in the interim constitution of South Sudan. So this is from this responsibility that the idea of a round table is coming. It is a call for all of us to sit together, to sit down and have a conversation, a responsible and a responsible conversation on how to answer the big questions that are on our shoulders today. So it is this that the idea from this that the idea of the roundtable has emerged from the discussion that the National Consensus Forum have been engaged in for more than a year. Actually, it's about 2 years, you can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gerald Pagan, for that well-articulate explanations in regard to how the National Consensus Forum came into being. According to what you said, Gerald Pagan, you said you came up with this idea after you have examined all the agreements that were signed since the crisis of 2013, and none of them is delivering adequate according to the documents agreed upon and signed by the warring parties. That's one. Number two, you said you have been in Rome for so long, and that agreement in Rome, even if you negotiate and agreed and signed with the government, it will not be implemented, considering the sequence of the agreement which were not implemented fully. Are you telling our viewers, General, that it is because that you have doubt as Soma about the Rome Peace Initiative, that's why you came up with this? Or is it because you want inclusivity of all South Sudanese? That's why you came up with the National Consensus Forum? Or is it because the government and you have taken long to negotiate in Rome and no fruits is coming out of it? Can you make it clear on that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, the initiative and the call for a roundtable is emerging and is coming out from our experience as South Sudanese. Number one, it is a fact, and nobody can deny this, that all peace agreements signed, like the agreement of 2015 or the agreement of 2018, and many other agreements, small agreements, the agreement signed, for example, between Cobra and Yao Yao and the government, the agreement signed was between the Kidugwang group and the government, says General Simon Garwich and Johnson Olony, and also the last agreement signed between Johnson Olony and the government. All these agreements have not been implemented and are not being implemented. All have failed. Just mention one and review it, whether they have been implemented or not. The truth is that all the agreements have not been implemented and have not delivered a peaceful and a democratic, stable, and prosperous South Sudan. That's one. All the agreements. Mainly these agreements are not implemented because the regime in Juba, that is President Kiir and what is known as R-SPLM in government and other groups associated with it, have always worked to undermine implementation of these agreements. They did not want change that are promised or that are agreed in those agreements. That's one of the main reasons. But the fact is that these agreements have not been implemented. They have failed to deliver to the people of South Sudan. Nobody can dispute this. This is one. Number two, all these agreements that have been signed also have been signed focused on power sharing. So governments are formed, and that is it. Positions are allocated, and that is it. They are not focused on implementing the programs that are agreed. So power sharing, and even because the power sharing has become a very ugly word, even they disguise it to call it responsibility sharing. But still, it was power sharing, and it was focused on power sharing. It did not deliver for South Sudan. It is not helping South Sudan up to now. Now, all these agreements also are only focused mostly between the warring parties, leaving the rest of South Sudanese who are not involved in war as if they are not interested parties, who are the majority of our people. And it is about them. Even government or the state is about the people. So the focus of negotiations, of peace talks, being focused only to be between the warring parties has made and has created a very bad situation, that it is only the gun, the power of the gun, that is the determining factor to sign peace agreements or to form governments, creating this culture of violence and culture of war, which is against the culture of peace. And now, because it is focused between the two between the warring parties, when it comes to building the state institutions, like, for example, building one national army, it is not implemented. Why? Because every group is trying to maintain its own military power, because that is the most important tool to maintain power or to even access power in the future. That is why armies are not formed, national armies are not formed, and when even they are formed, they are limited only to the warring parties, as if it is not a national army or national police belonging and supposed to be serving and protecting the entire population and should reflect the diversity of the people. These are lessons that we learn from the peace agreements that we have been signed. That is why we are coming to say now that it is clear we have learned already peace agreements between warring parties result into agreements that are limited, focused on power sharing, and limited to the warlords or the elites. Then you can add also the political parties, limiting also the search for peace in the country and the process of state and nation building only to the political elites in the country, armed or not armed, it is also excluding the majority of our people. Now, all the transitions and all the transitional governments have failed to deliver the core promise they have made right from the beginning. Every transitional government is formed to implement a specific program, reforming the state and building institutions and going through constitution making process, permanent constitution making process, and then hand over power to the people to elect their government in free and fair elections. This is from the first government, the first transitional government led by President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar when we declared our independence. That government could not conduct the most important programs of transition. Then came 2013, the country was taken to war by President Kiir, and then another government was formed, led by President Kiir and Dr. James Waniga, and that government also failed to deliver on its promises. They formed a lot of committees and all that, but totally was terrible. Then a third government, transitional government, was formed in 2016 with President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar and Dr. James Waniga as first vice president and vice president. And that government collapsed a few months later in July 2016. The country was returned to war again. Then another government was formed by President Kiir with General Taban Dengai as first vice president. That government also failed to deliver peace or transition to democracy. Then it came to an end with the formation of the transitional government, reconstituted transitional government of national unity, with 5 vice presidents, with Dr. Riek Machar again, James Wani, Mama Rebecca Nyandeng, Nemubior, Abdel Baghi, Hussein Abdel Baghi, and Taban Dengai. And that government now is spent the whole transitional period, and it failed to deliver peace or stability or handing over power to the people. They extended themselves in power. And now they said by December 2024, they will be holding elections. And you can see, we are now in December and approaching January, so they are left with about 11 months. And all the processes that have been promised have not been delivered. The country is not stable. The country is in a big humanitarian disaster. And the country is in economic crisis. And it is very clear that those elections will not take place. So all the transitions have failed, all the transitional governments have failed. One of the reasons why these governments have failed is because they are formed by the warring parties and by the political elites who have vested interest, and they basically continue to undermine each other and continue to struggle, wasting the resources of the country and undermining the implementation of the peace programs and reform programs in the country, because they are still eyeing power. They are still in the struggle, power struggle. And because of this focus, the country is disintegrating. The country is collapsing. It is out of all this that we are saying there must be another way. You cannot continue committing the same mistake. You negotiate an agreement, you sign agreements, you don't implement them, you form governments, they don't deliver, and then you come again, you say, oh, let us talk. Let the warring parties talk. Let the political elites talk among themselves. It is clear. Unless people are not seeing this obvious, and they are blinded by their interest, either interest in power, to have a share of power or to maintain power, but not really to solve the problem of the country. That is the difference. That is where the call for a round table is coming from. Now, if we are to rescue South Sudan, we need to ask ourselves very simple questions. Now that all peace agreements have not been implemented and are not implemented, why? Okay, if peace agreements are not implemented, what is the need to sign another peace agreement? And if the negotiation is limited to the political elites in the country and focused on power sharing, and this is not solving the problem, is there another way to rescue the country, to take the country out of this instability, this war, this dysfunction? Because the state is not functioning. The government is not functioning. You can see, for example, President Kiir in his limited campaign to elect himself as the next president, one of his main reasons that he is complaining about is that this government is too big. He has five vice presidents. So he wants a smaller government. When in actual fact it was President Kiir and his team that insisted that there must be more vice presidents. It was President Kiir and his team. It was not Riek Machar. Riek Machar position and SPLM-IO position was that they wanted one position of president and one position of vice president. But President Kiir and his team said, no. We want our vice president to be there. We want James Wani to continue as vice president. We want Taban Dengai to continue as vice president. And we will not mind for Riek Machar to be another vice president. And if there are others to be vice president also, it's okay. That was the position of President Kiir, because he did not want the position only to have one position of vice president, that of Dr. Riek Machar. And of course, he did not want in the beginning to work with Dr. Riek Machar. President Bashir is the one who convinced him and said, no, you work with him and this will be the conditions. That's how it happened. So we need to ask ourselves these questions. Now, how do you go to elections before agreeing on a political system in a permanent constitution for the country? What will be the legal basis for holding these elections? These are elections to hand over power to the people to elect their government under a permanent constitution. And without a permanent constitution, you will then be creating electing a transitional government again, because it will be based on a transitional constitution. But even with that, let us say, okay, they want to go and go for elections and deliver those elections in 2024. How do you conduct elections in an environment where political parties are not free to campaign, to conduct rallies, to express their opinion, to criticize the government or to criticize other parties? If you are going for elections, President Kiir will go for elections and will have the right to say, look, elect me again because I have done this, I have done this, I have done this. I have built roads, I've connected the roads from Kenya to Juba, from Juba to Wow, to Will, to Raja, and all are asphalted roads. And I have built the road from Juba to Bor, to Malakal, to Rang. And I've used the money very well. And no penny was looted. And all these roads have been built. They are tarmacked and they are built with cement. No water can take them, and none of these roads have been washed away by rains. So elect me again to continue doing all these good things. I have built hospitals and schools. The opposition or anybody who wants to be elected as president will say President Kiir has failed. Elect me and this is my program. Now, that is not there in Juba. Even Dr. Riek Machar is not free to conduct a rally in Juba. He's not free to conduct rallies in other cities or even to visit. And you have heard from and you read the position of R-SPLM when the deputy chair of R-SPLM, Right Honorable Yet, said that Dr. Riek is a prisoner in Juba. He's not free to even go for medical care. He's not free even to leave Juba to visit any other town in South Sudan. What type of elections are this going to be? I'm not talking about others. For example, when SOA, even in the presence of Vice President Hussein Abdel Baghi, tried to conduct a political function to receive the Secretary General of SOA, Dr. Lamakol, in Juba, when he returned to Juba. That function was dispersed by the national security, and that they did not have a permit. This situation, can it create an environment that will make our people elect their government freely? Definitely not. Even the SPLM IG and President Kiir, his process of nomination is stuck in Upper Nile now, because they started even violating their own constitution by creating regional caucuses of Bahr Ghazal, Upper Nile, and Equatoria, which are not there in their constitution. And for the nomination of the flag bearer or the candidate of the party. But look at this, that process alone within the SPLM-IG. They are not completing that process. They are having a lot of difficulties. Now they canceled the rally in Malakal. I'm hearing they are trying to do something in Bor, and they have not gone to Equatoria. This is just to garner the support for President Kiir as the flag bearer of the SPLM-IG. Now, they have not started their congresses from Payam, from Buma County, and Payam congresses, and county congresses are very important, because that is where the SPLM-IG in every county will also elect county chairs, who may be the candidates for commissionership in the local government, as well as state congresses, to elect their state candidates for state for governorship, and they are not prepared or preparing for a national convention where the election of the chair of the party, who will be the flag bearer, will be. So this, even the SPLM-IG, with all the resources that they have or have been looted by the financiers, they are not able to complete this. You can see very clearly that they are in crisis. They are not able to pull it up. That is the situation. This is the ruling party of the regime, the clique in Juba. That is the core. The others are just around. Now, forget the congresses of the other parties. It is very clear that there is no condition, no preparation to conduct free and fair elections. They are not prepared, they are not ready. Look at the National Election Commission. It has been reconstituted. It has no budget to run elections. In the budget of the government, which was approved by the parliament, there is no allocation for conducting elections. How do you run elections without this allocating resources to it? And many other aspects. So it is very clear that the country is heading for a dead end. Either they will start talking about another extension, which will be a big embarrassment. They may be embarrassed to say, oh, they cannot extend for another 2 years. Maybe they will extend for 6 months, and then another 6 months, and then another 6 months. And that is how the country has been going through failed transitions and failed extensions. And it is very clear that we have to take our country out of that. And it is in the interest of everybody, from President Kiir to Dr. Riek Machar to anybody else, particularly to all South Sudanese citizens who are suffering in this crisis and this dysfunction and these failed transitions with a government that is totally not functioning. It is a government not only failed, but it is hijacked. It is captured by parasitic interests. So the only way is really for South Sudanese to have a very serious conversation about how to rescue their country, how to take it out from this fragility, from this state failure, from the imminent collapse and disintegration.
Thank you so much, Gerald Pagan, for elaborating the answers widely and explaining to the extent you reach to the elections. And indeed, we are about to ask the question about elections. The only thing that I will add to that is that, do you believe, after you have explored all the possibilities of having elections or not having elections, do you still believe that there will be elections next year or not? Thereafter, we'll move to the next questions, which is the Kenya proposed venue by the government. Thank you.
There is no way that elections can take place next year. And this is not just my view. All institutions, including the UN, for example, the UN said in a very neutral way, they said the country is not prepared for elections. The conditions and the prerequisites for a free and fair elections do not exist in the country. And this is actually another way of saying, in a very mild way, that what they are trying to do is an attempt to steal legitimacy from the people. But even they are not able to do it. So simply, my answer to your question is that there is no way they can hold elections. And if they try to do these elections in some few places, few pockets here and there, and just push it as an attempt to steal in a broad daylight the legitimacy from the people, they will not be elections that they themselves can recognize or accept even the result. And you can see if President Kiir really wanted to conduct these elections, he would have started the preparation right from the beginning, and to make sure that he wins them by adopting the electoral law very early and signing it into law, providing a budget to the election commission so that they can start the preparation. He would have even implemented a vigorous process of stabilizing the country, especially when the revitalized agreement has been imposed by Bashir, and the opposition were made to go to Juba with the guarantee that it was not going to be implemented. He would have focused on this. But President Kiir and the clique around him are not able to, are not even able to steal the elections, to steal legitimacy in a convincing way. If you want to rob a bank, you just don't go to the bank in a broad daylight and then enter from the door and then you try to go and take the keys. No. You need to prepare for them. Even for stealing, they are not prepared. So I don't think there's going to be elections. And one of the reasons why there's going to be no elections, because even President Kiir himself and the clique around him do not believe that even if they conduct an election which are not fair, which are not free, President Kiir himself is not electable. And you can see within SPLM IG, many groups are discussing succession. That President Kiir cannot continue. They believe that he has lost his capacity to govern the country. And there are stories of succession here and there. You read a lot of documents about the Warab intellectual, SPLM intellectuals, and other groups within Warab trying to build scenarios of how to achieve succession with Riek Machar, with James Wani, or with Akolkor and others. These are things that we're reading coming out from SPLM IG or SPLM IG kitchen. And when these are happening, these are signs of possible implosion from within, which is also dangerous for the country. So you can see, leave alone the other parties who are also there and vying for power. That's why we are saying, the National Consensus Forum is saying, please let us convene a round table. Let us discuss responsibly and seriously how to take our country out of this crisis. Let us build consensus. Let us define what type of a state we want to have and how to build it, and what transitional arrangement towards that can we adopt. And let this be not by only the political elites or the warring parties. Let it be by representative of all the stakeholders, the political parties in the government and in the opposition, the church leaders or religious leaders in the country, women leaders in the country, youth leaders in the country. Let us sit and let us agree. It is not difficult, though it's not impossible to reach an understanding and also a way out from this situation. I believe it is also good for President Kiir because he definitely needs a legacy. He needs a way out of this crisis. It is good for Dr. Riek Machar. Instead of being stuck in Juba with this situation he is in now, it is good for all South Sudanese. Instead of suffering from year to year and the situation is getting worse, the economic situation is getting worse, and with all the environmental crises that are also increasing, and South Sudan is one of the countries that are hit very hard by global warming, with the floods and the droughts that are there, and all these problems. We need really to sit around and reverse this situation instead of waiting, and especially now that Sudan has collapsed. There is also a big danger. Who knows, the oil may be stopped or may be looted by those who are now struggling in Sudan there, because the state has literally collapsed in Sudan. Because of all this, our appeal is to all South Sudanese, to President Kiir. This is not about his power. This is about South Sudan. To those in the government, the proposal we are making is that let us sit down instead of fighting ourselves, instead of struggling for power. Let us sit down and focus on how we can all rescue our country. This idea of going extension and election and all that, it will not help. Because it may also, if you conduct such elections, the results will be contested. It may return the country back to another war or instability. Or who knows, it may also lead to other people feeling in danger and making coups. And we are hearing more stories about coups and coups. That's what I really am seeing. There is no way they can conduct elections come December 2024.
Thank you so much, Gerald Pagan. To our viewers, thank you so much. We'll go for a short break for some few seconds, and we'll come back. Please don't go away. Keep sharing this live show. We are discussing the national affairs, and you all need to hear the wisdom and the thoughts from our veteran, Gerald Pagan Amum, Okiech. And to add on that, we'll come back with the hot one, which is the proposals of the venue for the peace talk by the government of South Sudan. Kindly keep tuning in. We are coming back right away. Thank you.
All right. take a break, General Pagan and Majuk, for a few second break for water break. And for those of you, just grab your popcorn and water and come back.
Belena, Sudana, Belena, Belena, Belena Taban, Mintaman, Yarokuna. Charlie Chup Ayana, Belena, Mamurta, Sudan, Mujaja, Mafira Adena, Yalna Medin, Painanarapuna. Belena, Belena, Belena Taban, Mintaman, Yarokuna. Charlie Chup Ayana, Belena, Mamurta, Sudan, Mujaja, Mafira Adena, Yalna Medin, Painanarapuna. Belena, Belena, Belena Taban, Mintamani Arapuna. Charlie Shupayana, Belena Mamurta, Sultan Mujaja, Makira Lena, Yalna Maidin, Bainanarabuna. Ya Chak Sudan, Ya Kwana Chitel, Combeletu Mushaki, Taldumitenda, Mitenda, Taldumitenda. Ya Chak Sudan, Ya Kwana Chitel, Combeletu Mushaki.
Okay. We are back. Let us continue with the discussion. Microphone back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abraham Adit and the Lagos State Media team in the studio. To our viewers, thank you so much for staying up to this time and for tuning in. Kindly share our live show. And before we move, Gerald Pagan, to the issue of proposed venue by the government of South Sudan, I need you, for the benefit of our viewers and the citizens of our country. You have explored and actually you have foresees the reasons to why we should not have elections next year. And you have weighed the two sides of the coin. Now, if we don't go for an election next year, what will be the fate of the country? And if we don't go for election next year, and you have mentioned earlier, because of this bureaucratic government, who will be the beneficiary? Either the oppositions or the R-SPLM. Those two questions briefly, then we'll move to the venue issue. Thank you. Unmute yourself, Gerald. Thanks.
Yes, this is a very important question. If we don't go for elections next year, what will be the fate of the country and who benefits? You know very well that we are not the ones saying let the country not go for elections. We are saying there are no conditions for holding a free and fair elections in the country. And if elections are held in the country, they will not be free, they will not be fair. These elections, if they are held with the current situation, it will be an attempt to steal legitimacy from the people. It will be elections that will not represent the will of the people. and all the prerequisites for elections have not been met. From the permanent constitution to the census to demarcation of the constituencies and the registration of voters. All these are necessary to have been done or to be completed early before, at least 1 year before elections. Leave alone the earlier programs that were supposed to be implemented right from the beginning of the transition, which is the return is first of all stabilizing the country and building peace in the country, return of the refugees and back to the country and into their home areas, and they are assisted and help to rehabilitate themselves and rebuild their lives in their home areas, where they can now be registered as voters, a return of the IDPs to their home areas, and a resettlement of all the returnees into their home areas so that you can now register them as voters. Now, in the absence of all this, with violence being in the country, how can you conduct elections? And elections conducted in such an environment, which will not be free and fair, will they not be contested, and will elections not risk the country to a return to war? And President Kiir has been talking about that, talking about anybody should be ready to go for elections, and if you are defeated, don't run to the bush again. So you can see that is a possibility that he is talking about, especially if he is not allowing freedoms and for people to express their views and to organize and to campaign freely. And by the way, the campaign by necessity will be against President Kiir and his government, exposing the wrong things he has done. That is how elections are. And if he's not ready to even tolerate that and allow people to do that, then he's not ready for elections. While he's challenging candidates of other parties to come forward when he went to a will, if you remember, that is a contradiction. Now, because President Kiir and his government has decided to deliberately obstruct the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement and deliberately obstructed the process of election and decided to deny the fulfillment of all the prerequisites for elections, there will be no elections. And if they conduct election in this environment, it will lead to possible return to violence or to war. What can we do? what will be the fate of the country? This is a question you are asking. The country will disintegrate. That is why we are saying it is time now for South Sudanese to convene a roundtable conference to rescue the country from this imminent collapse. That is the simple reasoning we are making. Let us sit down. Let us review the situation. Let us build consensus among ourselves of a way out of this imminent disintegration, of this imminent collapse that is approaching. And you can see the collapse is not only as a result of holding elections or a result of not holding elections. It is also as a result of an implosion from within even the ruling clique. When now the talk is about succession and all that, and these are issues being discussed by small groups, not all South Sudanese. So the call for a roundtable, I believe, is the only way out for us to avoid this disaster that is coming. Now, what will it mean? It will mean when we go and sit, we will agree through this conversation that the best way would be to maybe form another government. For example, I have been proposing from early and others also that maybe it is time to form a government of technocrats instead of a government of the warring parties that are having internal disagreements and lack of agreements and undermining themselves and leading to no implementation of agreements and leading to failed transitions. Maybe we can have a neutral government that can usher the country into a free and fair elections. That was a proposal that I made earlier. It is a proposal that may come up. Maybe other proposal may come through the the roundtable and the conversation that we'll have and the dialogue that we'll have there among all the stakeholders. Nobody has a monopoly of ideas. I'm sure if South Sudanese sit down, they will find a way out of this crisis. That is what we are saying. And that may be the way out. Instead of doing the same thing that has failed again and again. For example, if there are going to be no elections, what options do they have? One is extension, but they have just made an extension which has failed. They want to do another extension which will again fail by the same people. What will be the difference? They may say, let us go for another formation of another transitional government. But they were having a transitional government that failed to deliver. Why again another transitional government of the same people that will fail to deliver? You have already extended a transition that has ended without anything. So Einstein said that you cannot repeat doing the same thing and expect to get a different result. You cannot, it is actually madness. Madness is to keep doing the same thing and you expect to get something different. You cannot have one agreement after another agreement and you don't implement them, and then you say, okay, let us revitalize it, implement it, and then you don't implement it. You form a government, transitional government, for a period, and then it fails to deliver, and then you keep saying, let us form one government, another government, like the many governments that President transition, how many transitional government that President Kiir has led up to now? 6 or 7 different transitional government, if you add the CPA time. Why have they failed to deliver? And should we continue doing the same thing? I don't think so. Let us go for a different way out. Now, I don't think elections will take place, and I don't think extension will help South Sudan. I don't think the same government giving itself another more time will help. It will be more crisis, and they will be getting themselves into dangerous area of collapse of the state, especially with all the development in our region, like in Sudan now. Therefore, it is in the interest of everybody, especially the government and the parties in the government. It is in their interest to decide now that we go to a round table. It is in the interest of all South Sudanese. It is in the interest of our church and religious leaders, instead of going every Sunday and every Christmas to pray to God to help us so that the new year is a year of peace, and to make sermons to people, to the government, to everybody, to please make peace. It is time now that they actually, the religious leaders, it is time for them to join us, to lead us out of this crisis. Even God worked through them. They are our spiritual leaders. It is time that they are involved and they take leadership. There was a time that our religious leaders took the position to support the right of self-determination with the position they took, let my people choose to determine their future. This is now the time also for our religious leaders to take leadership, not just remaining giving sermons and exhorting on the leadership in the country, but for them to take leadership. It is time for our women to take leadership, to join in the conversation and to be part of the decision making, because the type of state that we have now is a state that is very violent against women. We have never seen something like this. Our women never seen something like this. Look at the level of gender-based violence, rape, and all other type of violence against women. This is time to bring down this state through dialogue and to build a state that is really a state that respects women and equality of all South Sudanese, whether women or men. And to protect the gains also women have made during our struggle, from the 25%, the 35% and more, and involvement in decision-making bodies in our society. We cannot accept this degeneration to continue. It is time for our youth to be involved and to take leadership in determining how to build this new state, how to build this new nation, because the majority of our people are young people. And it is time for them to take leadership. Therefore, it is only a process like a roundtable of all the stakeholders that will bring them together. It is time for our civil society to be actively involved in designing the new system, instead of crying all the time about civic space. We need to create the foundation, what type of a state that we are going to build, or we will bequeath to our children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General, for speaking eloquently in regard to the issues of our country. Now, General, it was 2 weeks ago when the President of the Republic, President Salva Kiir, wrote a letter to His Excellency Dr. Samoei Ruto, the President of Kenya, requesting him to take over the mediations or peace talk between the government of South Sudan and the holdout group, and most especially the SOMA, which you are under, and you were actually in Rome, which we talked before, and the president requested the president of Kenya to take over so that the Kenya become the venue where you will finish the unfinished business of Rome in Kenya. What is your take in regard to that request as a SOMA leader and as the chairperson of the real R-SPLM and as also the spokesperson of National Consensus Forum? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we received news from Juba about the request of President Kiir asking President Ruto to mediate between the government and what they called the holdout groups. And we listened to that news item through South Sudan TV, as well as also some interviews by Honorable Minister in the Office of the President, Commander Joseph Bakasoro. But we have not received any official information or invitation. I'm informed that that it is true that the government of Kenya have received a letter from the government of South Sudan, or from President Kiir, and we do not know what is the position of government of Kenya, whether they have accepted to take up the role of mediating between the holdout groups and the government. So we will wait and see what will happen. So we just got the information like you in the media. Now, you ask me about my take. First of all, we need to maybe I need to explain some few things. I contacted personally Sant'Egidio to ask them whether they had any discussion with the government related to this new initiative by President Kiir. Because Sant'Egidio community has been mediating between us and the government. They informed me that they have not been informed, and they do not know about this initiative. They only read it like us in the media. I believe that is not a good development. First, the government of South Sudan would have or should inform Sant'Egidio and also inform us that they are ending their participation in the Rome process. Before they surprise us with a new initiative. That it is only normal. It has we have been, both of us, the government and us in the non-signatories, have been involved in negotiations in the Rome process, and we have signed a number of documents. What is going to be the fate of these documents that we have signed, and the agenda we have agreed on, and the discussion we have been holding. So that's point number one. I hope the government of South Sudan will engage Sant'Egidio and engage us through Sant'Egidio for the reasons to shift or to end the Rome process and start another process. That is the first thing I would say. The second thing is that the government of South Sudan has not been fully committed to the talks in the Rome process. Several times the government suspended their participation, several times. And several times they also walked out from these talks. And now Unilaterally, they asked Kenya to mediate, and with the attitude that the government has been showing in Rome, I am beginning to feel that this may be a showroom, a forum shopping. You know, you jump from one forum to another forum as a way to waste time and engage in tactics. The last point I would make about this is when we are contacted officially, we will then meet and discuss about it. So we as non-signatories, we are meeting next Monday about this, but we will be waiting until we are contacted officially, either by the government or by Sant'Egidio or by the government of Kenya. That is when we will then make our position clear. But in this environment and at this time, many questions are also arising. What exactly that the government has in mind at this time when they are going for elections, if at all they are going to take place, what do they want to achieve? Is it another peace agreement that will not be implemented? Is it another agreement, power sharing agreement between the government and the opposition? And what is the relation of that with elections? Or is it about rescuing South Sudan and achieving real, genuine peace? Is this another opposition and government sort of a thing? Or are we talking about solving the crisis in the country as South Sudanese, all of us? These are so many questions that we need to answer or to discuss. But I believe at this time, the best way the government can do is to join the call for a roundtable so that the parties in the government and the government itself and the other stakeholders, the religious leaders, and all of us, including the opposition, the civil society, women and youth representatives, for us to come together and discuss a way forward for our country and take our country out of this fragility and out of this serious crisis, which is a crisis of governance, crisis in the economy, humanitarian crisis, security crisis, violence. All these problems need to be addressed, and the country need to be rescued. I believe this time is not a time for small agreements between elites or small groups. This is a time really to think big about the country. This is not a time about sitting in small rooms to discuss how to share power, because this power of a sinking ship will not benefit anybody. It is time to rescue the whole country that is sinking now, taking it to a shore where we can have peace and can go in the direction and path of creating wealth for the country and building a prosperous society. This is really what matters at this time. I hope the government is thinking on these issues in a bigger way. I'm sure Kenya can help us. Kenya as a country has a lot of experience of how they achieve transitions from a system that was seen as and was a dictatorship and full of corruption into a democratic system where they are able to reconcile themselves as a people and elect their government periodically in a peaceful way. They have experienced that. We can learn a lot from them, and they can help us, like the other countries in the region as well. I believe it can be an opportunity if we take it to organize a roundtable conference. I'm sure it will help South Sudanese, and the region will be with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gerald Pagan. The follow-up questions to our viewers, this is a reminder. If you have any questions to Gerald Pagan, you can post it under the comment section, and the team of Lagos State Media in the studio will organize your questions in a summary form, and General will be in a position to answer them adequately. We are almost to yield it back to the comment sections, and the audience in Clubhouse. I know you are there patiently waiting for your turn to ask him some few questions. General, the follow-up question is, basically you have said you have not received formal communication from the government of South Sudan nor from the St. Gideon's leadership, not even Kenya, which is a proposed venue. What if you receive a formal communication from the government requesting the SOMA leadership to move the negotiation to Kenya from Rome? Will you agree to move to Kenya? And if yes, there are rumors here. I don't know whether you have heard them or not. You will still explain in your answering. There are rumors that one of your colleagues under the SOMA's umbrella rejected the proposal. And we cannot take it as Lagos State Media as formal, because you mentioned that you'll be meeting on Monday to discuss as a group on how to respond to this invitation. So we'll just put it as rumors that Thomas Charillo, with the chair of NAS, rejected it, and one of your members agreed to it, which is Gerald Paul Malong. He agreed to it that if possible we can move to Kenya. Kindly, that is a follow-up questions. Will you agree as real SPLM to move to Kenya or not? Thank you.
Well, as I said earlier, we as the non-signatories, we are meeting on Monday, and we will be discussing this. But even our meeting on Monday will not be conclusive. We will be waiting for an official and formal communication, either from the government, from Sant'Egidio, or from the government of Kenya, so that we can either agree or disagree. This is not the time to agree or disagree now. We are waiting until we are invited. You don't disagree or agree with something that you have not been invited to. So it is too early for us to decide that. That's one. Number two, you are asking me an if question. If we receive a formal information or an invitation, will we agree or not? In politics and diplomacy, you don't answer hypothetical questions. You better wait and then study what is being offered or where you are being invited, and then make a formal position, take a formal position in that. But as we are discussing informally, and also we are discussing a hypothetical situation, I think our position will depend on the many questions I was raising earlier. For example, why is the government moving out from the Rome process? They need to explain to us and convince us that there is a good reason for that. This is one. Two, is the government doing this at this time as part of their election campaign, tactically, and not serious about peace? Or what is their idea to ask Kenya to mediate? This we are going to probe the government and see them with these questions to give us convincing answers. Then also, as we get all this information and try to know the intention of the government very well, why are they moving from Rome mediation to a new mediation in Kenya? We will also share this with our colleagues in the National Consensus Forum, because it may be also an opportunity to pursue the initiative of the Roundtable Conference. Maybe the government is ready to engage in the search of a solution to the crisis that we have, particularly now with all the problems that they are facing and the difficulties that they are having, even in implementing their memorandum of understanding when they extended their time in government. Maybe they are convinced that maybe they are looking for a way out, which the National Consensus Forum is offering as well. So in that sense, the National Consensus Forum may take that as an opportunity to engage the government and engage the governments in the region, particularly the government of Kenya, and persuade them that the way forward is uh, through conducting or convening a roundtable conference, which Kenya and others in the region can help with. So these are all possibilities, but they may also not be there. Like, for example, if the government is looking for another tactical agreements which they have signed so many agreements which they never implement, but they end up sharing power and resources. If this is what they are intending to do, uh, we will be having a different position altogether. And that is how I see the development from here. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see and know what exactly is the nature of this new initiative. Can it be a possibility for us to resolve the national crisis in South Sudan and help South Sudanese achieve a comprehensive peace and a transition to democracy and stability? Or is it the same thing again and again of new transitions and new power sharing, or what? All this will depend. The days that will come will tell us what exactly are we having here.
Thank you so much, General, for that. Literally, real SPLM is undecided simply because they want to get formal communication from government Kenya, accepting the request from South Sudan government and also St. Gideon to allow the move of the negotiation to Kenya. And thereafter, you will sit under the SOMA and you will deliberate more, seeking answers for those questions which are actually on your end from the government. Thereafter, you will decide it whether to move or accept or not to disagree. Thank you so much. To our viewers, we have come to the end of our questions at the desk of Lagos State Media, but now we are moving to the viewers both on Clubhouse and the Facebook. The chance is yours, and the Lagos State Media team, Abraham Adin Majak, and the rest will display those questions. And if there are questions in Clubhouse, then I'm asking and requesting kindly be brief so that we can save time. The time which we set for the interview has ended, and we have given you these few minutes in order to ask questions too. There are numerous questions that we have not asked as the media, and we need to give you this latitude so that you can also be part of these discussions. I will yield it back to my co-host, Abraham Adenmajak, to proceed with the rest. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Majok. I think we will be getting a few, like 3 to 4 questions in Clubhouse, and then we will end that way because we need to get time. One person who raised his hand, Attilio, let me see. Okay, Attilio, it's your turn. Go ahead and ask your question. Attilio, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for hosting General Pagan Amum. Pagan Amum, thank you for coming and availing yourself to South Sudanese as usual, and at the same time, I wish you all the best as the new year is emerging. General Pagan, I was a bit confused, regarding the inclusivity. because you are the one who is advocating for the round table, so it can be inclusive enough, so all South Sudanese, all the stakeholders can be part of this beautiful or projected vision of yours. But at the same time, I'm confused. When you were in Rome, it wasn't inclusive because it's so-called non-signature. You know, there's folks from Equatoria, folks from other political spectrums. They weren't part of the Rome negotiations. So if you can walk me through, what does that mean exactly by being inclusive regarding the round table? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next, Manon. Manon, are you there? Yeah, go ahead. Ask your question.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah. First of all, my greeting to Tech Media, and also my greeting to General Pagan Amum. Happy New Year for you, and thank you also for coming to the show. Actually, you talk a lot about the election that may not be possible, and you actually make a comment that the lack of census data, the lack of refugees and displaced in the country would be the threat. But election also is a part of solution, because South Sudanese, they have been seen, as you explained it, since 2005, we are from transitional government to another transitional government, and people of South Sudan have not been given opportunity to voice their view from political elite, you know. Nevertheless, we see the same political elite who actually prevent South Sudanese to voice their voices are now talking that the election is not possible to happen. Because this transitional, even within the census, I mean the consensus form that round table that your group is proposing is another transitional. So I don't know how long South Sudan is going to be listening to those elite in the country and they talk in the name of democracy. Well, democracy cannot happen without practice. The basic principle of democracy is election. So I don't know how you see, if election is conducted in Iraq during the crisis, election are conducted in Afghanistan, are you telling us that South Sudan is more worse than situation in Afghanistan or in Iraq? For those who witnessed the violence and the crisis of Afghanistan and Iraq, nevertheless, the election are conducted in that environment. I think we need to answer that. The other thing, the issue of census data. You live here in the US with us here. American, they have general census data every 10 years. Nevertheless, they conduct 2 elections in the middle before the general census data. So I don't know, in your view, how you make it as one of the obstacles that will prevent the election to proceed. If the American can continue to conduct their election, twice election, in the middle of before the 10 years of general census data. The other thing also, if we are aware, people of South Sudan, in other areas, there's a displacement in South Sudan due to the security or natural disaster. And then we say that if we use the projection of census data of 2008, which actually can draw the consequences across the country. And I think would be fair enough, because even the consequences that actually being displaced, or at least they will keep their consequences as it is, or even consequences can increase based on projection of population, for example. But if you want to conduct the registration, people are not there. How are you going to ensure that the fairness of distribution of consequence and power of the country will be granted?
Okay, thank you. The next one, Tag and Wilson, I want you guys to have one question each, please. So just go right to direct question. So Tag, one question.
Who was the last one?
It's Manon. It's Manon. The last one, his name is Manon.
Manor?
Yeah, Manon, yeah.
Manon, okay.
Yeah. So Manon is a chairman of R-SPLM Secretariat in the United States. Okay, Attack, go ahead with your one question, please.
No, I'll definitely make it one question.
Okay.
Typical Pagan, you and the other people who are in the opposition, you guys talk about rescuing the country, but you guys who are in the very government that you want to rescue now, why didn't you guys rescue the country when you were the Secretary or Secretary General of SPLM?
Okay, thank you. So that's it. So those are the questions. You can go ahead and answer those questions from Tilo and Leo, and also to Attack. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Attilo, for asking the question about inclusivity. What do we mean by inclusivity? We mean by an inclusive roundtable as a process in which all our stakeholders, South Sudanese stakeholders, that is to say the political parties in the government and in the opposition, in the country and outside the country, to participate in the roundtable. But the roundtable will not be limited to the political elites or the political parties themselves alone, but rather it will include the civil society in the country and also outside the country, including the diaspora. The roundtable will include our religious leaders, all of them or representative will be represented in the roundtable so that they participate as equal stakeholders in this process of searching for a way out for the country. It will include, the roundtable will include women representatives of the various women organizations in the country, outside and inside the country, as well as also representative of our youth. As I said earlier, our women are a majority, and our state is becoming a very violent state against women. Our country, the majority of our population are young people, and the youth are also the future of this country. We are talking about the future, therefore they should be represented. That is what we mean by inclusivity. Yes, in Rome, it was not inclusive because it was limited to the political elites in the country, and that is limited to the political movements and parties in the government who signed the revitalized peace agreement, and in the opposition who did not sign the revitalized peace agreement. And in Rome, in the last rounds of talks with the government, we were arguing that the participants are not inclusive in the Rome process. We were presenting our position as non-signatories that it is important that the Rome process is transformed to include our religious leaders, our women, our youth, our civil society. And we widen the agenda from trying to negotiate another power sharing agreement for the non-signatories or the holdout groups to join the government. Instead of just that being the focus, let us discuss on how to rescue the country as a whole. Let us discuss how to take the country into a path of peace and stability, and to achieve prosperity with a stable democratic system in the country. That was the last discussion we were having in Rome with the government. The government was saying, no, these meetings should only be limited between the revitalized or reconstituted government of national unity and the holdout groups. And the purpose is to sign an agreement that will include the holdout groups to join the government as a focus. And that is where we disagreed. So you are right, Rome was not inclusive, and we propose that it should be transformed so that it is more inclusive. So that is the inclusivity we are talking about. Now, on the question of how long are we going to talk about democracy, and we are opposing elections, and we are trying to postpone elections, when elections were conducted in Afghanistan and in Iraq? This is a very important question by Brother Manon.
Manon. Yeah, Manon Aleo. Yeah.
Manon Aleo, okay. Brother Manon, you know very well that the Iraqis, after the war, and when the war was continuing because there was a resistance against the U.S. occupation of Iraq, after the collapse of President Saddam Hussein, what the Iraqis did was, after the occupation administration, the Iraqi formed a transitional government. They worked, they held conferences, and agreed to a new Iraqi constitution, and they proceeded with voter register, demarcation of constituencies, even during that difficult period of fighting, which was there. But they did all those processes despite all these difficulties, and they held their elections. The same thing for the Afghans. After the overthrow of the Taliban government and they withdrew into the mountains and the countryside, the Afghans, they established a transitional government. They went through conferences, constitutional conference. They adopted their constitution. They carried out preliminary census. They registered voters. They demarcated constituencies and conducted elections. And from that elections, they conducted another elections, and two different governments were formed before the the overthrow of those government by the Taliban when they advanced and the Americans withdrew. In South Sudan, despite the fact that they have agreed in the RRCs that they are going to conduct elections at the end of the transition, but before that they agreed to return the people, resettle the displaced and the refugees back into their home areas. They agreed to conduct census. They agreed to demarcate the constituencies based on the new census. And they agreed to register the voters. Before that, they agreed to reconstitute the National Elections Commission. And it was also agreed that the National Election Commission will be provided with sufficient budgets to carry out all these processes. It was agreed to go through a process of permanent constitution making process and to conduct elections at the end after all these processes have been carried out, particularly after they have agreed on the permanent systems of governance which will be reflected in the permanent constitutions. Then whole elections under the new permanent constitution. That is what the parties agreed. Now, my brother, all this, even though they have agreed, all this have not been implemented. Now, the people are not returned to their home areas. The refugees have not returned back to their areas. The internally displaced have not returned. So they could not conduct the census. There is even no demarcation of the constituencies, no register. And the last register was in 2010. For now, 2010, it is 13 years from 2010. And it was not agreed that they conduct elections with the old census, with the old voter registration, which of course definitely need to be updated, because maybe 50% of the voters today were people who were minors. You know that the majority, those who turned 18 from 2010 to up to now, probably will form the majority of the voters. And if they are not registered, and if you are using the old registered vote, you will disqualify them. Now, these are things that the government has failed to do. We are not the ones saying don't hold elections. It is the government that obstructed the holding of elections by obstructing the implementation of all these prerequisites, apart from the condition and the environment of civic and political space in the country, or lack of it. So, who is making the situation not to have elections in the country? It is the government. It is not the opposition. And if the whole elections without having provided and established all this, we will be taking the country to another risk of a return to war when the results are contested. You cannot use also the population projection. As you can see, it is a very, when the projections were announced, it turned out to be a very highly conflictual issue, where some states have doubled their population and other states have been cut to less than half of the previous population, for example. That is another area of conflict again. So that is the reality we are talking about. That is why we are saying, please let us engage in a conversation to take the country out of this crisis and out of these obstructions. Nothing more. You can see now the government are disagreeing among themselves. Some are saying there are enough conditions for holding elections. We can hold elections even with the transitional constitution, which will be a transitional government again, because it is under a transitional constitution. This is within the government. Others are saying, no, there are no conditions for elections. Now, my brother Attack was asking me that, he's asking me that we are talking about rescuing the country and we were in the government. Why did we not rescue the country when we were in the government? My brother, I think you have not been following developments in the country. When I was in the government, or when I was the Secretary General of the R-SPLM, in 2012 and 2013, very early I started to speak of the need to build our national unity, of the need to reform the government. And I was criticizing our government. I was criticizing the leadership of SPLM, of which I was part of. And I was calling for a need to return to the vision of SPLM. And I was calling for a need to genuinely fight corruption. And as a Secretary General, when I was saying this, my brother Attack, people were saying, you are Secretary General of the party. Why are you talking against the party? And why are you calling for reforms within the party? And as a Secretary General, I was put under house arrest and I was denied not to speak, not to talk about rescuing the country, not to talk about avoiding a return to war. Maybe you did not follow these developments. Now, when I am out of the government, you come around again and ask me, why are you talking and you are out of the government? Why are you? And I was talking and I was pushed out of the government because I was talking in the government calling for rescuing the country. Now I'm outside the government. You want to deny me not to talk about rescuing the country. Where would I talk now? Or you just want me to be silent and not to say anything about South Sudan? I think that is what you want. But that will not help. I just want to contribute a little bit to help ourselves and help the country. That's all what I am after. If it is about when you are in the government, you don't talk, I would have not left that government. I would have not been put under house arrest. I would have not been removed from the position of Secretary General. And when I went back after I was removed, I was returned and I went back to my position as Secretary General. But when President Kiir refused to sign the peace agreement in Addis Ababa in 2015, I spoke out and I criticized him. That is why I'm out of my position as Secretary General again. I think what is important is whether you are in the government or you are outside the government, you should tell the truth as you see it. And if something is being done wrong, say we are going in the wrong direction, we should go to the right direction, or let us look for the right way or the right direction. I believe, my brother Attack, that is what we are trying to do here. It is not about being against the government. And it is not for positions. If it is for position, I would have been in the Secretary General and be quiet and join those who are eating. But that is not what we are about here. All of us are required as a generation alive today of South Sudanese, our responsibility, all of us, you and everyone here, our task is to ask ourselves, how can we build a state that can serve our people? How can we build a nation out of all South Sudanese in their different tribes so that they can live in peace and harmony? That is the responsibility that we have. And that is what we are searching, and that's what we are discussing, even here now. So it is your responsibility to ask yourself, how can you rescue the country? And the situation now is worse than any other time before. You know it. And it may get worse. That's why we say, let us do something before it gets worse. That is the whole idea about this roundtable conference. It's not anything else, really, genuinely. And what is wrong about us calling ourselves and say, let us sit down and talk about our problems. Let us look for a way out. And it is all of us sitting and talking. Not as enemies to each other, not as people fighting for power, but as South Sudanese who want to build a modern, effective system of governance after we have become independent. It is for us not to fight among ourselves, but rather to ask ourselves, how can we be united as a people. How can we reconcile now that we have inflicted so many wounds and we have divided ourselves? Can we unite? Can we build a nation that we can be all of us proud about? These are the issues, my brother Attack. They are not any other issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, General Pagan. We have one person in Clubhouse, Wilson Fanapur. I want only one question from you. Just make a brief, because we're running out of time.
All right. Thank you, Brother Madi, and thank you to the entire Lagos State teams, media, and thank you, General Pagan Amum, for coming to this forum to highlight some of the things that are needed to be shared by South Sudanese. I don't know where to start because Pagan is all over. But some of the questions have been asked already. I may come up out of this question because I believe politics go on public opinion. If some politicians are stick for years with one things without observing what the public need, then this politician will be out of question. Because you don't stick with what you think, you go with what the public thinks. Now, it's at our table, democracy, there will be war, and all. So there is nothing new here. It's like you have a wrong DJ always being the same song, that happened a live shit. Now, I'm going to the out of the question as one of your senior Comrade Pagan came out with very strong interview last 2 months, if I'm not wrong, General Uyai. I don't know whether he's still with you in the party, but the way he was talking looked like he was independent. He came out with very strong term of using, he's coming to Juba with Kalanchin Cope. He's going to take the government out. And we were waiting, thinking that you may come out, whether you deny it or you for it, to highlight South Sudanese. So now, my question, were you in the same boat with your senior in your party? Is that what you are forward to, not a round table in the room? Or this guy speak out on his own? Because this is very serious here. Some of you are talking here with the peace, and then some of your members are coming to Juba with Kalanchin Cope. So can you tell us which one is which now about this statement come out from Uyaideng last month?
Thank
Were
you.
you aware of it or are you part of it? Thank you.
Thank you, Wilson. That is a question from Wilson Fanapur. General Pagan, I'll take this question with you and then you can answer them both. So this question is coming from me. Actually, this question is regarding about unification of R-SPLM. So you are chairman of real R-SPLM and the ruling party, R-SPLM, called R-SPLM IG and R-SPLM IO. If there is a window of opportunity for this party that carrying the R-SPLM name to be united before they left on 2024. So thank you.
Yes. About the question of Brother Wilson about the statement or the interview conducted by Mathiang Shirilo with General Oyai, where he said that he was going to go to Juba with his Kalashnikov. In the interview, if you followed very clearly, General Uyai talked about many agreements dishonored, not implemented, and that there's no peace in the country, and there is war in the country still, and that all agreements, including the Arusha agreement, was not implemented. And it is within that context that he said that they are left with no other option but to fight our way back to Juba, going back to Juba with Kalashnikov. That is what General Weah said. And he talked about the national dialogue and how its resolutions were not implemented. And it is this same environment we are in now. Today, as we speak, we have violence all over the country. Peace agreements are not implemented, or the result of the national dialogue are not implemented. Even the idea of the round table, the government was rejecting up to now. And the elections even have no prospects for them to be conducted as free and fair. There is no political space in the country for the opposition to peacefully work to change the government through elections. That is a reality. And it is within this reality that we say the country is drifting to disintegration and collapse, or even possible more wars. To avoid that, we are proposing to convene a roundtable conference, an inclusive roundtable conference with the participation of all the stakeholders, for South Sudanese to sit down and have a serious conversation about the future of the country, with the aim to develop a national consensus among us as South Sudanese on what type of a state we need to have and how to build it, and how can we build a nation out of the 64 tribes of South Sudanese through dialogue and not war, not conflicts. To avoid more conflicts, we are saying, let us have a round table for us to sit around and talk about the problem. It is obvious and clear what do we want to avoid here. What we want to avoid is for people to get frustrated and to say to hell with it. Let us fight it out, which will lead to disintegration. To avoid more war, we say, let us talk. Let us sit down and talk. Not as enemies, but as brothers and sisters, as citizens, equal citizens of this new state. So you can see the linkage, my brother, and that is exactly, this is the context where the idea of the round table is coming. Yes, we are together. General Oya Dengajag is a senior leader in the SPL, in the real SPL. And he's not disagreeing with this. We are fully agreeing. And that is the context where he was speaking from. Now, about the SPLM. The reunification of SPLM has been obstructed, honestly speaking, by the chairman of the SPLM himself, who is now the chair of the sorry, I'm getting some calls which may be interrupting the discussion. The unification of SPLM has been obstructed by the chair of the SPLM, by General Salva Kiir himself, and it seems that he has decided not to return to the vision and program of SPLM. Because even those who went back and those who believe that he can engage in reuniting the SPLM have been marginalized, and they are there in Juba. And there is no return to the vision of SPLM. There is no return to the programs of SPLM. And he seems not to be interested in actually building a peaceful South Sudan, or having a government that can deliver what the SPLM promised. You can see all the government he has been leading up to now, up to the present day we are speaking. All these governments never delivered on the promises made by the SPLM. All the resources are being siphoned and diverted by him and his close associates into their private accounts. You can see it, for example, in these shameful so-called road projects. The building of the road from Juba to Bor. How can it take $3 billion, 200 kilometers, and you take $3 billion for it, and you are still asking for more? How can you build a road from Juba to Bahr Ghazal and it is not reaching for years? And 1 kilometer is $1,800,000 per kilometer, and it is washed out by rains, and it is already cracking. They are taking 70% of the oil money now is being taken, claiming that they are for building the roads. And these roads are being built by the president companies. ABMC, which was sanctioned, and ARC. What is this? That is the real problem. It is not only ideological differences, but it is total differences in the type of programs, in what you want to have a government to be in government for. What are you using the state for? What is very clear is that President Kiir, right from independence, worked in the direction of hijacking the state and taking the government away from the SPLM. And later on, it started to work, President Kiir started to work to undermine and destroy the SPLM together with the NCP. And he brought and empowered the NCP cadres whom were given mission to destroy the SPLM and its government, and empowered them, brought them very close and empowered them. So, to be very honest with you, my brother Madid, President Kiir has taken a counter-revolutionary position and has adopted a reactionary ideology of tribalism and regionalism, and is engaging in dividing the people, destroying the country, and capturing the state and undermining the state. The result is a failed state. The result is a captured state. The result is a dictatorship and a kleptocracy. There is nothing SPLM about that and in that, except the name, and maybe the red T-shirts and the yellow star, but nothing SPLM at all. This is a counter-revolutionary clique that is not only destroying the SPLM, but destroying and doing everything to dishonor the name of SPLM and to move away from fulfilling or delivering on the promises made by the SPLM during the struggle. Promises for which tens of thousands of lives were lost and were sacrificed. People died dreaming that one day we will have our own state and we will build a new society, a new South Sudan that will be peaceful and prosperous. That is what is SPLM. SPLM is not just name. SPLM is a vision. SPLM is a program. SPLM is a clear mission. What President Kiir has been doing is against and opposite to what SPLM stands for and stood for, what he himself fought for. He is against what he fought for. Yes, he has a potential and a possibility of returning back to the vision of SPLM, to the real vision of SPLM. He has that possibility. So theoretically, there is a possibility of unity, but you unite to leave SPLM vision, or unite by returning to the SPLM vision. The real Unity is when we come back to the program, when we come back to promise again that we are going to deliver what we struggle for. What was the liberation about? It was about and is about now about building a peaceful, just, and a prosperous South Sudan for all its citizens without any discrimination. That is what SPLM is. Anybody who believe in this vision, who has this vision and who believe in the mission of building that South Sudan is SPLM. Anybody who does not have the vision and believe in this mission is not SPLM. Or at least, as we say, it's not the real SPLM. You can call yourself SPLM, but you are not real SPLM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Pagan Amum, Okiech, for spending time with us and with the citizens of South Sudan to answer some of the few questions and speak to them honestly and eloquently. Thank you so much. Up to this juncture, permit me, our viewers and the Clubhouse audience, to give General Pagan 2 minutes to give us his last remark, because we are done with our conversation of today. And in your closing remark, General, what is your message to the President, Salva Kiir, and the government of South Sudan? And what is your message to the citizens of South Sudan, whose their hope is always that once New Year comes, they always believe that New Year might come with a different dynamic and changes, politically and economically? What is your message to these two groups, the government of our president and the citizens of the country? Thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting me in Lagos State Media and for giving me this opportunity to share with our people and your viewers and listeners about our common dream as a people, and about how it is necessary for us to take this time to sit and have a very serious conversation, a very serious dialogue, and the call that we are making is for all South Sudanese stakeholders to convene a roundtable conference to rescue the country, all South Sudanese. And we sit in a round circle, in a round table, in a neutral ground, so that we are able to genuinely do a soul search and redefine ourselves as a people, agree on what type of a state we want to have, agree on what are the bases for us to build ourselves into a peaceful nation and a prosperous nation, a people living in peace and harmony among themselves, despite our diversity, but build a nation that is inclusive. We say this is important now because the country is in danger of disintegration. And we say this is important that we do it in this generation because our main task, our historical task as a generation, is the task of being mothers and fathers of this new nation and this new state. And our responsibility is to create the solid foundation for this new state. Our state now is a fragile state. It is a failed state. Our country is the poorest country on earth today, despite the fact that we are endowed with so many resources, with a lot of resources. Even the country is poorer today than in 2010 or 2011. Our GDP is falling every year. We are in a negative growth. And the state is stunted, as Dr. Adok referred to it. It is not growing. It is not developing. Because of all this, we must sit down as responsible people and as citizens who have responsibility towards this state, towards this nation, but also towards the next generations or the future generations. That is the core of our message. Now, my message to President Kiir, to Dr. Riek Machar, to all the vice president, to all the ministers in the government and the advisors of the president. As a government, you form yourself into the government of reconstituted transitional government of national unity in implementation of the RRCs. The RRCs has not been implemented. You have extended yourself in government. The 1 year that has gone of the extension has been a difficult time for you. You could not carry out all what you agreed in the new roadmap that you signed. And you are having serious challenges even to deliver on the elections and on peace that you promise the people of South Sudan again and again. You fail in the transitional period, you are now failing in the extension. Another extension will not help you. Holding elections without fulfilling the preconditions for the elections, as you have agreed, will take the country to another risk of return to violence or collapse of the state. The economic crisis that are happening are posing more challenge to you. And things will not be normal for you, President Kiir or Dr. Riek Machar, who are leading the government now. We are saying the best way out is for us to go to a round table and let the people of South Sudan decide the best way out. That would be the best thing you can do to yourself, instead of going into more crisis, and to the people of South Sudan. President Kiir, you have been a president for all this time. you need also to think about the legacy and a future for the people beyond your presidency. The call for the round table is an opportunity for you, President Kiir, so that we can help each other and we help our country out of all this crisis. We are making these proposals not because we want to take your power or your government. No. We are not making this proposal because we are disagreeing with you and we are your enemies. No. We are making this appeal to you as the head of state to join hands, all of us together, we rescue our country. There are times that people can disagree. There are times that people can fight. There are times that people can oppose each other and destroy themselves. All this we have done in the past. Now is a time for us to sit and have a conversation. And it is actually not about us. It is about this country. It is about this state that is collapsing. It is about the future of the generations that are even not yet born. That is my message to President Kiir, to Dr. Riek Machar, to James Waniga, to Taban Dengai, to Madam Rebecca, to Hussein Abdel Baghi, and to all those who are in the government, including the leadership of the parliament and the members of the parliament. My message to the people of South Sudan, and as Majok said, who always at Christmas and at the end of the year pray and wish that the new year will be a year of peace and a year of better conditions and better life. It is also my prayers and my wishes to each and every South Sudanese who are suffering in different parts of the world, inside the country, different parts of the country, that 2024 will be a year of peace. I pray that it will be a year of peace. I pray it will be a year that we begin to focus on building our country, on building our state, and on building ourselves as a nation, starting by healing the wounds that we have inflicted on ourselves and reconciling ourselves and reuniting ourselves as a people. We are one people. What united us is not the enemy whom we fought. No. What united us and what unites us is a dream that one day we will be free and we will build a peaceful, just, and a prosperous country for all of us and for our children. That is a dream that unites us. It is time to make this dream come true. I beg you, each and every citizen in South Sudan, to please support this initiative of convening a roundtable, an inclusive roundtable conference, so that we can build national consensus, agree to a new social contract that can be a basis for building a peaceful just and a prosperous South Sudan for all South Sudanese, a homeland in which we can live in peace and harmony, and we can begin to sing songs of freedom with joy as we sing in our national anthem. I thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Gerald Pagan Amum Okiech, for your time. On behalf of Lagos State Media, we deeply appreciate your time, and we really honored your time that you have allotted to us for 3 hours and some minutes, staying here and speaking to South Sudanese from bottom of your heart. We really appreciate that. We don't take it for granted. Thank you so much, and we will keep engaging with you more to get more discussions as time goes by in issues to do with the peace talk, which you said earlier you will be meeting on Monday with your team to discuss and wait when you are actually consolidating your ideas together. And to our viewers and the citizens of South Sudan on Facebook and on Clubhouse, thank you so much. Lagos State Media would have not been existing if it was not because of you. You always sacrifice your bundles, your MBs to lock in and come and listen to the views, the wisdom, and the thoughts of our guests. And we really appreciate that time. We really value you and keep doing that. A society that always keeps talking is a society that always finds peace and solution for their problems. As General put it earlier, we are not united by the enemies, but we are united by the ideals and the vision that we share together. We are united by the locality where we dwell together as the citizens of South Sudan. The role of South Sudan is not one-man show. It's you and I and everybody. We must collectively always engage in conversation to find meaningful solutions to our own problem. To my team in Clubhouse, my own brother Attilo, and the chairperson of R-SPLM and Onaleu, Attack, and everybody there, thank you so much for actively engaging in the affairs of South Sudan. I wish each and every South Sudanese happy and prosperous New Year 2024. Let's hope for the best, and God might bless us this year. In the name of Jesus. Thank you so much, and be blessed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
William.